Welcome everybody to another episode of PZ Does It. Thank you so much, guys, for listening in. On this episode, on this podcast, we seek to gain insights for life to live a better life. And I believe there's no better way to do that than to, seek God spiritually through the process. I think of all the content and all the books that are out there that I love. I'm a reader. Eddie, I know you're a reader too.
Absolutely.
But nothing has made such a pivotal dynamic change in my life as, being aware of God and what it really means to follow him. So I'm here with my good friend, Pastor Eddie Turner. This is a man of many hats. He has played a monumental role in my life in helping me become the person who I am. As a matter of fact, Eddie, thinking about it, you've known Alicia and I since we first started dating in high school. So
yes.
Alicia and I have been together for 11 years. We were talking about it yesterday, 11 years, and you've played a big part in just kind of, keeping us in the fold and just including us in, everything you've been doing in your ministry. And so, Eddie, I'm so thankful you are here. How are you doing, man? How's it going?
Oh, I'm blessed, brother. It's so nice to sit across a Zoom call from you as a peer. It's just, I've been amazed at your journey. I've been amazed at, this is what we need to be doing, is bringing up, I'm a few years older than you, and just bringing up each other to where we sit across the table from each other as equals. Like that excites me. That excites me. Your family, I know your dad, I know your mom. It's an amazing journey, man. And to be able to sit across this podcast from you as an equal it's a thrill of a lifetime, brother. So thank you.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think so often, at least in my own ministry, we think of the heights we can reach in our professional careers and what we can do. But there's something so beautiful in being a part of a community for so long, right? And the impact that has, man, that's breaking my heart. Kind of leaving the job that I just left to be up here at Andrews University. I think it's necessary. I think it's good for me. But it was so heartbreaking because, man, I had Jeffrey Woods in my classroom, and I knew that guy since he was oh my goodness, in kindergarten. Eric Barcelier, he was I taught him his freshman and senior year, and now he's off at college. So what you just brought up, being able to grow up in a community with each other, especially that Glendale community, something very special about it. Man, that's powerful, man. And to see what people are doing and see kind of where life is all kind of taking us. It's, I don't know. It's something, I don't know. You can't pay for that, man. That's an experience like no other.
Like no other. And to have any role in it, whether it was a day or whether it was years, you just have to look back and say, thank you, God. Thank you that I got to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You look at young men, young women as they take off in their life, and you just look and go, I was there when, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Now, Eddie, we were talking before this, but what all does your job entail? I feel like you're a man of many things.
Well, let's just for everybody out there, I never wanted to do this. I never wanted to be a teacher. I never wanted to be a preacher, and I never wanted to go at the church that I'm at right now. So God has a funny way of taking your nevers and turning them into the greatest joys of your life. I am an associate pastor at the Glendale Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm also the Sabbath school teacher for the teens and preteens. I am the chaplain and Bible teacher for Glenview Adventist Academy Middle School. And I teach Bible to 6th, 7th, and 8th, as well as serve as chaplain for all the school. Every Friday, we have a chapel program that I am in charge of. Yeah. I am the pastor of the Maricopa Village Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is on the Native American reservation, and all the challenges that we face there. We were out of our building for 16 months because of COVID. So that was a very challenging time for us. And I'm also the men's ministry leader for our church, and working with my senior pastor, Pastor Gary Venden, who is both of our mentors.
Yes.
Somebody we love very much. And he's an incredible teacher. But you and I have branched, and God has put things on our hearts, and he allows us to do it. And that's just an amazing thing. So and a full-time father, and whatever else comes with my three beautiful kids. So
You're a busy man. One of the things we started getting in touch at Glendale Church when I was probably a junior, I think, in high school, probably around my sophomore, junior year, maybe even before that. But I remember there was some at least significant moments in my life that you were a part of that were very important. So one of the first ones was, being a part of a men's group ministry,
yeah,
especially my senior year. Because growing up, I always just thought you go through life, you do the best with what you have, which is kind of what it is, and you hope to succeed. And that's just kind of it. And, I started dating Alicia, and I guess I didn't realize in the process, that there's so many things that happen or go on in between. And this was kind
yeah,
of what I want to get at, that we don't really realize that are important to ourselves, to our relationships, and to who
uh,
we're becoming, right? I
yeah,
think we call them skipping steps.
yes,
It's very possible to have an intelligent, even working with high schoolers, you can have someone who's very bright academically, which is a blessing, which is a gift, but maybe is a little bit behind socially.
right,
Or, what we see, that I've seen with young men, you have some very talented, athletic young men, but maybe are not as intuitive emotionally.
right.
And so we see these different aspects of ourselves where we're trying to, we've been gifted in certain areas of our lives. But the reason why I bring that up is because oftentimes we are not a whole person.
Mm,
And being a part of the men's ministry at Glendale Church has kind of brought that into my being, into my existence, which is there is a journey. Predominantly for me, it was, what you guys characterize as the masculine journey, and that
absolutely.
every guy needs to go to in order to become the person that God wants him to be, in everything, in your work, in your job, your community and your relationships. But why is that so essential? Why is not skipping steps so essential? Why is knowing where you're at on this journey so essential? Why is it so important to who we are? And yeah.
You know, Sometimes we have to go backwards to go forward. So let's take a
Okay.
look at the Old Testament in the Bible. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, young men stayed living at home and worked, and I like to say murderously close with their fathers, right?
Murderously close.
Because sometimes, the man wants to say, hey, all right, go figure it out. But you worked side by side with the old man
Hmm.
until you were ready for marriage,
Wow.
right? Until you were ready to build a life of your own, to build a home for you to bring a woman into and take care of her. You work side by side with your father.
Hmm.
And I'm forgetting the verse, but it says, "For this reason, a man shall leave his mother and father." Not for any other. It was for the reason of building a life together with your new spouse.
Hmm.
So you were a man before you went out and tried to have children, before you brought a woman into this. You
Hmm.
worked with your father and you understood what it took to be a man. Nowadays, we think an age makes you a man.
Yeah.
And we kick kids out at 18, 19, send them off to war, college, whatever. And we say, okay, now go be a man. What? you know, we're
That's it right
basically
there.
throwing them to the wolves and saying, okay, now go be a man, go figure it out on your own. I'm
Right.
done with my responsibility of taking care of you. And that's never the way that God meant it to be. We have started this culture of making kids figuring out on their own. And that's not what God meant it to be.
Yeah.
God meant it for masculinity to be bestowed upon. This because we read the book together, Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. And one of the questions that posed me, that shocked me in the book is, who told you you were a man?
Hmm.
Did another man look you in the face and say you are a man?
Wow.
If they did not, then how do you know you are one?
Woo.
You do not get to bestow masculinity upon yourself.
It's the question.
It's the question, do I have what it takes to be a man? And furthermore, who am I? What am I made of? And so many of us have skipped steps. We saw things too young. The enemy has made sure that we were definitely going to be wounded on that journey.
Yeah.
Society is built on fatherless children across every culture. And now we have a bunch of, for lack of a better term, young men growing up thinking that they're more than they are. And when they face tough times, when they face challenges, when they face the giants of life, and I'm saying that intentionally because we're going to get into David in a little bit, but when they face the giants of life, they don't know how to perform. They don't know how to stand up and be accounted for. They don't know how to be a man. So they run. And in that running, we leave another generation of manless, leaderless, fatherless kids to raise themselves.
Yeah.
And if you just look at society as a whole, we're spiraling down the drain. And unfortunately, and I say this with all due respect to everybody's opinion, in my humble opinion, it's because of a lack of real men.
Yeah.
A lack of real men. And so men have to stand up, be accounted for, and fix the problem. And it starts with us seeking God first. Because let's face it, here's the honest truth. Who else can tell you what a man is except the one who created them?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because there's so many different perspectives out there. There's so many ideas.
What did God say? What did God mean when he said, let us make man in our image? Let's start with that question. Yeah. And then it branches out from there.
No, you said something really key that I kind of want to poke at, which is masculinity is something that is bestowed.
Yes.
It's bestowed upon somebody. What exactly do you mean by that?
So every culture has a different idea of what manhood is, right? Some cultures, it's the macho thing. Some cultures, the man is the leader of the home and the father and the final authority. Some cultures, the man is the caretaker of the home and he's the one who's gentle. Everybody has a different idea of what manhood is. But that manhood is not given to you because you decide that that's what you are. It has to be earned. It has to be bestowed. It has to be handed down from one generation to another. It used to be in the Old Testament that a father would bless his children, and that blessing not only could it not be taken away, you got Esau and his brother, right? The blessing couldn't be taken away. And you're thinking, but it's just words. No, words are powerful, and it couldn't be taken away. But it also was something that was earned by testing and proving your character as a man. You know, we played sports, we were tested. We went to school, we were tested for the knowledge that we know. We face life's difficulties, we get tested. How else are you going to know what you're made of? I'll give you an example. I had a very good friend of mine. Oh, I miss him too. We used to go work out together. I was big in working out at one time, and I need to get back into it. I put on a few pounds, but I was big into working out. And back when I was bench pressing like 500 pounds and just going crazy, I had a buddy I worked out with, and he was a very good spotter. He'd make sure I didn't hurt myself, tear a muscle or anything. But when it came time to him to work out, I'd say, okay, we're going to do 3 sets of 10. My first set is a warm-up set. That doesn't count.
Right.
The next 3 sets are my sets. On every set, I would say, I'm going to do 3 sets of 10, but if I could do 12, I'm going to do 12. If I could do 14, I'm going to do 14. I want to push myself to the breaking point to where he has to help me get it up.
Right.
What happened was we'd switch and then he would take over, and all of a sudden I'd say, okay, let's do 3 sets of 10. And he'd knock out 10 and rack it. And I'd say, hey man, push yourself. And he'd be like, no, you said 3 sets of 10. That's all I'm doing. Now, you would think not a big deal, but here's why that became important. When life's challenges came up in life, he didn't know how to handle them because he never knew what he was made of. It translated to more than just the weight room. he never knew what he was capable of. And so he got himself into situations and he'd run. And I'd be like, what are you running for? First of all, I'm here to back you up. Whatever you need, I got you. Second of all, hey, man, we can overcome this. Let me teach you.
Mm.
And that's what I mean by bestowed.
Good.
My father pushed me all the time. If I said, let's do 3 sets of 10, he'd be like, one more. And so I do one more. And then he'd be like, good, one more. So I do one more. And he'd be like, good, one more. And I do one more. I mean, he would push me to breaking. And so that's all I knew. And that was if I got a good grade on the test, he'd want better. If I got a 1,200 on my SATs, he'd want me to push for 1,300. When can you take them again?
Yeah.
That was his mindset. That was my mother's mindset. Manhood is bestowed. We have to teach each other how to, what our limits and capabilities are.
Yeah.
And if a man hasn't been tested and proven, he doesn't know. And it takes another man to do that.
I think we need something. What you're saying is we need something to test our strength against. We need to know that we have what it takes, and we can't just, wake up in the, I mean, we can kind of claim it by faith, but a part of faith is stepping out and doing something with it. We have to be able to know that we can rise to the occasion, that when duty calls, that we can make sure that we can deliver. We need something to test our strength against. And I love what you said about athletics, because I think there can be one or two ways where it can go. I've seen it where, yes, athletics and pushing ourselves physically, I love it. Is one of the ways in which, it's almost like it's like the playground. It's almost like the training ground for what's going on in the real world, what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But sometimes we make that the thing. Oh,
yes.
Look how big I can get. Look how strong I am. Look how well I can perform as an athlete. And it's crazy because then it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're any better. Hello.
That's my little daughter.
Hey
I'm
there.
always a father. I'm always a father.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Hello. And we get lost in that. We get lost in the sauce. And that doesn't necessarily make us into who God wants us to be. Cain was he was a hunter, and he was a strong guy, but that didn't necessarily mean he was, God's guy, at least in that moment. So, I love that. For the purpose of, we just need something that will get us to where we need to be so we can be who we need to be.
Well, and I want to add to that a little bit, because, as we move forward, I want to make this clear. That's why I said in the beginning, we have to start with God, right? The person who made us. The test isn't the arrival. You have not arrived just because you hit a goal, right? Now you go, and this is part of the masculine journey, and I know we're going to get into this, but now you have to know what you're supposed to use that strength for.
Yeah.
What you're supposed to use it, who you're supposed to bring it to, right? Just because you're strong, that's not a rival of manhood. Now you have to learn to appreciate beautiful things. Now you have to learn to find out what you're supposed to use that strength for and who you're supposed to bring it to. Now you start to get into the heart of God. Wow. Because let's face it, here's the kicker. God has all the power in the universe to take planet Earth, flick it off its axis, and send it into the sun. But the greatest thing about God, in my humble opinion, is his incredible restraint. Can you imagine if more men used restraint? You know what I mean?
Right. I agree.
Oh, it would be a different world if we would use restraint.
That's so good. It's not just that we've accomplished it, we've got it. Now it's just this idea that, okay, well, what do we do? What does this mean now? What do we do with this? That's right. I think that's key. That's a very important thing, because it informs what we're actually doing. If we can just do the thing and say, hey, look, I'm a man. Hey, look, I'm a woman. This is now who I am. Well, no, now what does that mean? And I think
one of the things I teach my youngsters is this: we have to decide, you're of a different culture than I am. Okay. We're all Americans, but I'm also an African American. I'm also a Turner, right? That's my family last name. I grew up in that culture. When you go to my house, there might be different rules than if I go to your house, because we're a different culture. But I have to decide which culture prevails. And I have decided that my Christianity prevails. right? The ruling culture of my life has to be Jesus Christ. Amongst all other things, it has to be him. Now, from him determines everybody else's rank, place, and what I'm going to do. This is why we have to go to God first to find our identity. Because if I find it anywhere else, my African American culture may say, we're going to ride with Black Lives Matter. But my Christian culture, Jesus Christ may look down at me and say, I don't need you to ride. I've got enough riders. I need you to be a healer. Now, which am I going to do as a man of God? I have to decide right then and there which culture prevails. And I've decided that my Jesus Christ culture prevails and what he says goes. So if he needs me to be a healer, God, I don't even know how to put a Band-Aid on right, but let's go. Let's heal. Let's bring people together.
Wow. Kingdom culture, man. Wow. That's monumental, because there's so many things that pull at us, even me, even being here at the seminary. It's like, oh, do I want to get an emphasis in youth and young adult ministry? Do I want to get that chaplain training? There's so many different things that can pull at me. And there's so many things at my heart, right? The Bible says a man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord is the one who directs his steps. So it's just that whole idea that there's so many things that we could possibly be. Yes. And we could be good at it. I mean, every day I wake up and I'm like, why can't I be a billionaire?
Right.
Lord, why didn't you see that fit for me? You know what I mean? And maybe there's a reason behind that. Who knows? But I think what's important is what you just said, the role that we play in the big, in the actual thing, in the bigs, when God comes and he hands out that baton, I'm right where I need to be. I'm not distracted by what's going on over here, or what's going on over there. I'm doing my job, and it's been given to me, and I'm going to do it well. And I think that's key to then, the masculine journey, or, just that growth journey of not skipping steps, being ready. So that way, when God comes to us, we are ready to, do what he wants us to do effectively.
Absolutely. We call it manning your wall, right? You man your wall. I did not get to go to seminary like you. I'm very proud of you. I'm almost a little jealous, but but that does not mean that what God has planned for me is anything less. You and I have been friends for a while, and we're on the same journey, and we've been through this masculine journey together, and God is blessing us very differently. You're manning your wall. I'm manning mine. And that's where God wants us. And, one of the things I have to tell, I used to coach, and I still love coaching. I still love bringing the best out of teams. But one of the things that I tell my teams is, I'm not asking you to trust the process. I'm asking you to love the process. Love the process.
Fall in love with it.
Yes, because there's going to be ups, downs, highs, and lows. But when the time comes, you will be ready if you've given it everything you've got. And if we find that you're a great ball handler, but you don't have a jump shot to save your life, well, then we missed a step. We got to go back. You may understand the X's and O's, but have no athletic ability whatsoever. We missed a step. We got to go back. You may have been taught how to dunk a basketball, but can't shoot a free throw. We missed a step. You got to go back. And it's okay. Love the process.
Love the process.
And yeah, God takes us through ups, downs, highs, and lows, but there is a process into being men that he expects to take us through. And even if our fathers, and God bless us all, we're all sinners saved by grace, but even if our fathers had shortcomings, God says, I'm the father of all. Let me take you through the process. You and I both know how many men God has put in our lives to guide us to where we are.
It takes a village, man.
It takes a village. It wasn't just dad.
Right. It's never just dad.
It's never just dad. I look at Pastor Gary Venden. When I came back to the church, I was raised an Adventist. I left the church for over a decade. When I came back, the way he taught, all of a sudden I understood. And all of a sudden it was like I heard it for the first time. And I'm calling home to my folks going, did you know this? Did you hear this? And they're like, yeah, you grew up with that. I'm like, no, I didn't. I've never heard this before, you know? And it was because God placed me in this man's care so that he could teach me everything that I needed to know. And I could go home and look it up and go, wow, it's all right there.
Now, I know we're going to talk about fathers and David's experience here
Yes,
in a
yes.
moment. That's good. Now, I just kind of want to flesh out, off at the top of your head. I don't know how much you know, but the book Way of the Wild Heart kind of
Yes.
categorizes these different transitions in the masculine journey and the consequences that come with skipping those transitions.
Mm.
You know what I mean? What happens when you have the movie comes into my mind, Gladiator. That movie, I would watch it every year in college as a reminder of what I wanted to be and what I didn't want to be. But I
Yes.
think it was oh man, I'm forgetting. Of course, I'm forgetting the names. But there was the
Ominous
emperor,
and
the evil emperor, the wicked guy,
ominous.
Amadeus. Yeah, yeah. He was a guy who skipped the steps. It's what happens when you have a kid who's, a guy, a man who's an emperor, but still lives like an impulsive teenager.
Yes.
Woo! And you put him in the ring with now who's the gladiator? What's his name?
Maximus.
Maximus. You put him in the arena with a Maximus, a guy who has a whole military force of brothers, a band of brothers behind him
Yes.
and their approval, and he had his family and everything. When he steps into the ring, or when he steps into the theater, both of those guys together, you feel the force of Maximus,
Yes.
and you pity the emperor. This guy has nothing to show for. He is a weakling. He's constantly trying to. He's very impulsive. He's not, like you said, he's not able to exercise self-control. And because
Right.
of that, he just constantly looks like a fool. He's his own worst enemy in the story.
Yes.
The only threat that Maximus poses to him is what he's brought upon himself. It's this whole facade he's created for the imposter. He's created this. He acts like he wants to look like an emperor, but he certainly doesn't act like one. And so nothing's worse than what happens then if you become CEO of a company and you haven't transitioned. What happens then when you become a husband or you're a boyfriend or but all these different things, and you come into these positions and yet you haven't transitioned in the journey. So break down the journey a little bit. The key, some of those key transitions into the journey, why they're important, and we'll get into David.
It's kind of funny. To me, the first step is what so many kids are missing. And that first step is just being a beloved son. That's the first step. Just knowing that you are protected, knowing that you are loved, knowing that there's men out there who will rally around you and you get to look up to them. When my sons get in my car and they go on a trip with me, they don't have to worry about eating. They don't have to worry about stopping to go to the bathroom. They don't even have to worry about where we're going.
Yeah.
They know that their father loves them and that I will take care of all their needs. And that's being the beloved son. When I discipline my children, the funny thing is, and my children taught me this, not once have they ever ran from me. I've never disciplined out of anger. I've only disciplined them out of a means to change the course of their lives. Wow. Son, I can't let you do this. I know what happens down the road. So when I discipline my children, they actually run to me.
That's good.
And we hug afterwards. And they are, right now, they are beloved. They're 7 and 5. They're my beloved sons and my beloved daughter, and that's the stage that they're in. And then you go from that stage, you go into this place called the cowboy phase.
The cowboy, yes.
The cowboy. And unfortunately, a lot of our young men get stuck here. There's nobody to progress them forward from here. They get stuck in this place where they have to, their boyhood love of cops and robbers and being the hero, and they want that place. And this is why you have grown men flocking to Marvel movies, right? Because they still in their heads want to be the hero. Mm-hmm. They want to be the hero. And I have no problem with wanting to be a hero. But at some point you have to realize that God has given you that.
Yeah.
And in many eyes you are, and we'll get to that in a second. Then from that place, you go to this place where you have to learn, and so many men don't. You have to learn to appreciate beauty. Mm-hmm. You have to learn to appreciate beautiful things. You have to learn to appreciate beautiful people. You have to appreciate art, music, poetry. This has nothing to do with a woman. This has nothing to do with sexuality. This is purely appreciating a sunset, appreciating the stars in the sky. Can you, as a young man, look back and say, wow, that's beautiful?
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. Go to a painting and say, wow, that's incredible. You know, do you know how to make a meal, but also make it visually appealing? We can slap together anything, right? But can you make it visually appealing so where somebody looks at that plate and goes, wow, this is good.
Yeah.
You know, this looks good. And then from there, you know, you get to this place where now you've tested your strength in the cowboy phase. You played cops and robbers. You appreciate beauty. And now you get to this place where you learn what your strength is for. Your strength is meant to protect those who can't protect themselves. Your strength is meant to speak for those who can't defend themselves. Your strength is meant to take to the beauty, right? And give to her. So many of our young men are looking for, and older men alike, are looking for their identity in the woman, and that's not how it was meant to be. She will never be enough for you. You will never be enough for her. You were meant to take your strength to her. She was meant to take her beauty to you, and you both were meant to seek identity from God.
Yeah. Where often we seem to get it reversed. We try to get our strength from the woman, or vice versa, our validity from the man.
And that's why divorce rates are higher than 50%, you know? And then the last stage, the last two stages, one is the king, where you now have your own kingdom. And men, if you're listening, I want you to understand this. You are never responsible to and for just yourself. It doesn't matter whether you're at work, your friends, if you have a home and somebody is in it, or you're at work and you're in charge of something, even if you're not, you have a kingdom. People are watching you. And you, as a king, it is not your job to sit on the throne and make everybody serve you. A real king gets his butt off the throne and makes everybody in his kingdom's life better. That's a king. And then you end with the sage, where you're no longer the king. You step aside and the new king comes in, but you're the advisor to the king. And let me tell you something, in God's kingdom, there's no such word as retirement. So all these people going off to the sunset, stop it. There's no such word as retirement.
Yeah.
Moses worked until he died. He hiked a mountain to go talk with God. God spoke to him and say, by the way, it's time to die. You know, but he was working until he died.
That's interesting.
And that's just the way it goes.
That's so crazy, because even in our conversations, there are so many times where I'm like, you know what? I think I just want to be done with ministry. I think I'm done now. But even if I were done with ministry professionally, that does not mean in any way that God is done using me in some capacity. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm done now. I'm just going to, watch what I want to watch, do what I want to do. And then God's like, no, that's not how this works. You would be doing this regardless if you were doing it professionally or not. I'm like, man, I don't get a break, man. I don't get to retire. Nope.
Nope. You know, Moses did not get to tell God no. And I love reading that chapter sometimes. Right. Moses gave every excuse in the book. And finally, God said, you know what? You're pissing me off. You're going to do this. Okay.
Oh, man.
Yes,
when you read that story, you just feel God's like eyes rolling. Like you feel him like holding his own tongue. Like, sure, yeah, whatever. Get Aaron to be your spokesperson. But we both know you're going to end up doing this regardless. Like, you're going to do it.
In case you didn't know, everything in the universe does what I tell it. Those are the stages of the journey that I see. And it's so important not to miss anyone. If you don't appreciate beauty and you take your strength to the woman, you're going to wreck it, because you don't appreciate it. You don't know how to handle it. You don't know how fragile it is, you know, and you don't know how to nurture it. You don't know how to care for it. But I see a lot of our men stuck. They never get the beloved son phase. And then they get stuck in the cowboy phase. They get stuck.
Yeah.
and nobody ushers them forward.
Hmm.
You know,
That's monumental. And I love that you brought that up, because even in my own experience with my dad and the role he's played in my life, he's been a part of the men's ministry, and I think we've grown a lot of ways, even in our own relationship. But,
right?
I talked to him one time, and we had him and Maria over, my stepmom over for lunch one time after church. Alicia and I were all talking, and I remember I looked over to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm sorry I gave you such a hard time, man, growing up. Like, all the times you had to pick me up from the cops, and you had to pick me up from a police station, you had to pick me up from getting arrested at another place, all the times you had to pick me up from school from getting. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I was really taken back one time, because then my dad's like, well, I'm sorry as well, because I'm not sure I was there in the moments that you needed me to.
Right.
And I was like taken back by that. I was like, oh wow, like, that's, yeah, it's such an intimate journey. Like you said, we need somebody that is there with us, that father who's going to be with us. We have lots of them, but being able, having that father figure, that person to be able to guide you through that journey of those important steps, whoever that might be, is
Yeah.
key. Those mentors are key to getting us to where we need to go, and they keep us accountable to who we're supposed to be. If we try to do it on our own, then we're just going to skip steps. We're going to risk, skipping steps. We weren't,
Yeah.
we weren't made to do this alone. So,
Not at all. Matter of fact, that's how cowboys died, right? Riding off to the sunset on their own.
yeah.
That's such a terrible picture. Like, we want to be this lone hero riding off to the sunset, but that's how they died, right? You need a posse, you need a crew, even Jesus sent his disciples out 2 by 2. You're not meant for this, to ride in this world alone. He never
Yeah.
meant for that.
Yeah. I think that's huge. Now, in our conversation, you had brought up, you have a unique journey too, when you used to share your college stories with us, and all that you kind of went through and your experience. But talking about David, in his experience, we see in David's life this mapped out pretty well. We see him as the beloved son, the ruddy son. But even in some respects, did his father really even give him the love necessary for him to mature in a healthy way? And we see a lot of David's journey even with Saul. We see Saul once again being that king who
Right.
should not be in that throne. He should not be in that position. This guy's impulsive. He's unruly.
Right.
He's mean. When all the ladies drop that new album, Saul has slaying his thousands, but David's his tens of thousands. That only fuels his anger more, and it's in the tabloids, and he's blown up, and he's but then we see David just have this amazing journey, all of a sudden going to the top, and he's king. And then all of a sudden there's the situation with Bathsheba, and hurts his, that really impacts his, empire, impacts his legacy in a lot of different ways. What do you think about that experience, about his journey there?
In looking at it, and this is just my take on it, it seems like David missed a couple steps.
Yeah.
And I'll just try to run through this real quick for sake of time, and let people flesh it out on their own. When the prophet came to announce and the new king, David's father didn't even bring him, didn't call him in. Now, the man was told to bring all your sons, but David was not one of the sons that he was called for. And then when he does say, is this all your sons? He says the word is used, hakatan, which can be translated, I have a worthless one out in the field.
Wow.
Right? Now, here's the killer. His own father didn't think him worth it to bring. His own father called him worthless. He becomes labeled the new king by God. And when King Saul is going through his issues and needs someone, if you read the story, everybody else in town know that David was good looking, was a good musician, was honest and fair, but his own father called him worthless. Sometimes you can be cut low by the words of the people that are closest. And so David grows up not feeling accepted by his dad. So now he goes out and slays this giant. And he carried the head of Goliath around for weeks.
Yeah.
Why? Because this rotting head, flies are coming, implanting maggots and all. But why did he do it? Because every time he showed it to people, they praised him. He didn't get that as a boy. He was the worthless one. So now people are praising him. There's a new sensation. And one of the best things that happened to him was he moved in with the king, King Saul, and became like one of his sons. His best friend became the king's very own son, Jonathan. But now even this king turns on him. And when the king starts telling him, I'm going to kill you, David, he looks at the king and says, why is the king angry with me? I'm worthless. He repeated the exact words his own father said.
Wow.
Dangerous, brother. Dangerous when we don't get to become the beloved son. His own brothers let him go fight this giant and did not offer. I know I have a brother. He's a half brother. I met him when I was 15, 16 years old. If I were to get into a fight today with a 9'9" giant, my brother is not letting me fight that guy alone. Right. Me and my brother ride together. We get in trouble together. Like we do not, my family does not let you get into a battle. You fight one of us, you're fighting all of us.
That's awesome.
All of David's brothers just stood there and watched and let him go. What kind of a family is that? What kind of message is that? And so now David is this young man who's been wounded since he was a child and never recovered from it. And now this wounded man is king. And now this wounded man is now killing another man to take his wife after getting her pregnant and trying to trick this man. He's as impulsive and he's as stuck as he was when he was a boy, because he did not get ushered into manhood the right way. And so David's life shows us all of the steps of what it looks like when you miss. And God had to come down and really chastise David and really hold David accountable and really take David to task, to take him back through all of those stages to where David ends his life. And Jesus said, God says, this is a man after my own heart. Not like this is a man like me, but this is a man who chases after my heart. He really wants to know what it is to be with me. He really wants to know what it is to be a man. He's really trying to find out what I meant when I made him. And David was a killer. Let's not beat around the bush. David was a killer.
100%.
He was a killer's killer who surrounded himself with killers.
I mean, God even said, like, no, man, you can't build my temple. There's too much blood on your hands.
Too much blood. But God, I'm bloody for you. I respect that. Thank you. You did what I asked you to do, son. But man, you enjoyed it. Not people didn't willingly give up their foreskins. All right. Let's just be clear.
You enjoyed that a little too much, David.
You enjoyed that a bit much, David. But one of my favorite stories of David, and you want to talk about a man. David's coming back from trying to get in with the Pharisees. Saul's after him. He's got his mighty men with him. They kick him out. The Pharisees kick him out because they're like, look, our generals, they're still singing songs about how many of us you killed. You can't be here. And he comes back, and his family and all the family of his men are all been kidnapped. And his men are tired from battle, and they want to fight David. They want to stone David. And the Bible says, David encouraged himself in the Lord. Now that's a man right there. Wounded, broken, but that's a man who understands how to fight, how to pull through. And even when he takes his troops and he talks to God, God says, go back, go. You're going to recover everything. Go get him. He takes his men, half of them, are tired. They can't go on the journey anymore. David goes, chases the kidnappers all night. He gets to them. He fights all day into the night, recovers everything that was stolen, and still gives back to those people who couldn't go with him. He gives them their stuff back. He doesn't claim any of it for himself. This dichotomy of David, man, it's an incredible journey of manhood. And it's not the fighting that you're talking about. I'm talking about the strength of character.
Yeah.
Think of what David's his wives were saying. My man chased me all night. Then he fought for me all day. And he won the battle. That's my man right there. Think of your woman looking at you and say, my man's got it.
Mm.
You should be scared when my man gets here. That's the strength that is missing in society today.
Mm.
It's not that women can't. I have maximum respect. My sister's a single mother raising two beautiful kids. Is that they shouldn't have to.
Wow.
They shouldn't have to. Where's our men? Where's our men in our churches? Where's our men in our homes? Where's our men grabbing kids by the collar and saying, we don't talk like that. We don't act like that. I'm not going to let you go down this path. And I don't care if you're mad about it. I'm the man. I'm going to keep being here and supporting you whether you like it or not. I'm going to keep here guiding you whether you want me or not, because I'm the man and I know it's coming. David didn't just fight Goliath. David had more giants to face.
I think that's good. And one thing that, as you're talking, that came to mind is that this is not a type of masculinity where it's necessarily like, you know what I mean? Like this machismo, like idea
Oh,
that like, you know what I mean? I'm all that and more. It's this quiet confidence that, you know what I mean? I step in the room, I know what I stand for.
there you go.
You walk with that weight, you know what I mean? There, you could say it with your chest, as they say.
Right.
There's that confidence about you because even, you know, Jesus, I think of that whole garrison coming to get him in Gethsemane as he's suffering and his boys are sleeping on him. And they bring these guys out with bats and clubs and
Yep.
swords. And you call this guy like a gentle, you know what I mean? You call him like a gentle person. Like
Right.
maybe he was gentle with those who were hurting, but he
Right.
was dangerous with
Yes.
those who embraced a false masculinity. He was
Get it.
dangerous with
Yes.
those who pretended to have, right. You don't crucify a nice guy, you
Right.
crucify someone who's a threat to your empire.
There you go.
And he was a threat to those people who were living the imposter, that they were not who they were trying to be, and so they were so scared of him. And I just
Yes.
love that scene in John where he announces his name and they all fall back,
Yes.
just kind of afraid of him. So this is a deep level of confidence of knowing that I am the beloved, like you said. I'm so solid in my beloved identity. I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I can do.
Yes.
And I think when we walk with that, it's just, I think that's life giving, like you're saying, it for everybody. We shouldn't be taking from our families. We should really be giving back to them.
One of the greatest compliments I was ever given, and I don't say this with a big head, it really humbled me to hear this. It really made me understand my position to hear this. But I walked into the church and one of my friend's wives got up and, they're much older than me. And she said, "Thank you for coming. I love when you are here because I feel like strength has entered the room."
Wow.
It's one of the greatest compliments I've ever been given. I was humbled by it
Mm-hmm.
because the world would love to tell you that you're meaningless, that you don't bring anything to the table, that you have no gifts, no talents, that you're just going to fade out. But my God says, no, I made you for greatness. When you show up, strength enters the room. And that's what we bring. I had done nothing but walked in and sat down.
Yeah.
But it made certain people feel more comfortable that I was there.
Hmm.
They knew that should anything arise, should things go a bad way, should they need anything, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize what your presence brings. Now you take that to your family. You take that to your job. You take that to school. You take that to your friends, your peers. You take that to a Bible study, a Sabbath school class. Your strength is needed. Your voice is needed. God made you for greatness, but he has to complete his work, and he won't finish the work until he comes.
That's
Those are the
good.
words of Jesus. I will keep working on you until I come. And when I come, I'll be done
That's
because I'm going to
good.
make you perfect. But the masculine journey never ends.
I think we deceive ourselves when we come to this point when we say like, I've arrived, like here I am, there's nothing more, there's nothing more to
Oh,
learn, there's nothing more to do, there's not more I can be. I think that's deceitful, but we, like you said, it's that promise that he who began a good work in us will bring it to completion
yep.
until until the day that he comes.
Right.
So I think that's key.
I for me, what I see right now happening in our churches is there is a level of malaise that has come over men. We've gotten comfortable with where we are. And we've got to shake some things up and change some things to pull us out of this place. And I've got a bunch of young people with all the energy and ideas in the world. And I've got a bunch of elders who have all the wisdom. And we've got to pull it together and start being men. You know, it takes the energy of the youth, but the wisdom of the elders to get things done. And we need to rebuild those connections and be accounted for as men. Because what do men do? If we make a mistake, we fix it. You know, we account for it. We fix it. We're going to see it through until it's done the right way. We don't just run from it, make a mistake and go, oh, that sucks. Oh, on to the next thing. No, we see it through to the end. And there's so many things that we still need to be taught. There's so many things that we need to journey through together. There's so many tests that we need to help each other overcome. We got to keep pushing as men. And right now, what is presented as men, I've got young kids that are trying to pretend to be rappers, you know, in middle school. I'm like, why do you want to be that? Oh, because they're cool. What about them makes you cool? Well, they got money. Can I show you something? And I'll show them how on the Forbes list, those people aren't there.
Yeah.
You know, I'll show them how all of those guys are renting their jewels. I'll show them their record contract and how the record company owns them.
Right.
They don't have any money. They're just making you think they do. It's a poser.
There you go.
It's a false sense of masculinity. The real man, one of my favorite movies, you were talking about your favorite movie. I have two favorite movies. One of them is The 300, right? Love that movie. Love that movie. You know, not only when he kicked the guy down the hole, this is Sparta. I love that. But I love the way the guy said, this is madness. And he looked back at his wife, right? He looked at her for clarification. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah.
He respected her as a woman. He respected her as his queen. And he looked back, and when she gave him the head nod, it was over. Okay? It was over.
He was granted permission.
He was granted permission. She was saying, I'm with you to the end.
Yep.
She knew this was going to cost her husband her life, his life. She knew she may never see him again, but this is what has to be done. You're a man and you are king, and I'm with you to the end. We're missing those parts of society. One of my other favorite movies is A Bronx Tale. And in A Bronx Tale, the kid is idolizing the local gangster in town, and his dad is chastising him. He said, his dad tells him, you think that that's a tough guy? Go to a job that you hate every day to provide for your family and put food on the table. That's a tough guy. Pulling a trigger is easy.
Yeah.
Going and providing every day, that's a tough guy. And we have gotten it backwards what masculinity is.
Wow.
You know, Jesus got off of his throne, made himself lower than his adversary. His adversary was an angel. He made himself lower than the angels to become human, to live as one of us in order to provide a way to save us all. He endured every hardship, every pain, growing through puberty, being taught in class, having to have his diaper changed, learning how to talk. Like, he endured it all. And then he took a beating that no one I know can take. And he did it God's way. But here's the point. He did it as a man. But remember what he was. The entire universe was at his whim. And the killer thing about Jesus is he signed his death certificate when he blew breath into Adam. He knew already, this is going to cost me my life to start this life. And I'm going to do it anyway because I love. Men forget that our king, the one who created us, he's who we get our manhood cues from. And doing things because they need to be done, even if they're hard, is what manhood is about. our society says, take the easy way out, take the easy way out. That's not manhood.
Yeah.
It's not manhood.
Where would be a good place as we close? Where would be a good place for us to start? If someone's been living the imposter, they're done pretending. If someone feels like they've been operating not from a centeredness, but from, a place of insecurity, this person's been struggling with, I think, elder, I don't know who it calls it, like the illusions, they're caught up
Yeah.
in the side, what does Eldridge calls it, like the cheap romances. They're caught up in these
Yeah.
random things that are not taking them anywhere closer to where they need to be. Where is a good starting ground? I was there so long ago. Where's a good starting ground, do you think, to begin this journey properly, to revisit the areas of their life that they need to go through in order to become who they're supposed to be?
If I were to start this journey and I had the resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna give it two ways. The first thing that I would do is I would go find me someone as a Christian, find me a Christian man to emulate.
Okay.
And you may find one thing from one guy, something from another, something from a third, but start watching these men. Watch how they talk to people. Watch how they treat each other. Watch whatever it is that you say, I want to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Stop focusing on what you don't want to be. Focus on what you want to be. I would start emulating them, and then I would ask them very humbly, will you pray with me? Don't do the Christian thing of pray for me, right? Ask them to pray with you. Tell them what's going on. Tell them that you're trying to get rid of this thing that's over you, and ask them to pray with you through it day in and day out. Number two, if you don't have anybody around you, if there's nobody, then you find you some space and start abiding with God every single morning, and open up your life to him. What God did with me one afternoon at church, I was cleaning up after a Friday night chapel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just cleaning up. I was there by myself, and I prayed and said, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to be. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm back in your house. I'm back with your family, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I had become a character that everybody else wanted me to be, named Big E. It was a character. It was a fake person. And I didn't know who Eddie was. And as I'm praying through this, I didn't realize what was going on, but I hear God say clear as day, Big E must die so that Eddie can live. And I stopped because I realized I don't know who Eddie is or what he likes. And so I began to pray. And that within a month was when we started our first men's ministry group.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to go and learn about the masculine journey and sit with men. And I'll be honest, it was 5 years of that journey before Big E was dead, but the process started. And so you need to surround yourself with people who don't feed into the poser, and you need to seek God out so he can tell you who you are. He may change your name, or he may do like he did with me and change the meaning of my name.
Yeah.
But you start in those two places, and God will guide your track.
I think that's good. I think that's a perfect place to stop. I think for all intents and purposes, if you want to be who you need to be, you got to kill the poser, slaughter them, get rid of them. That doesn't mean you're violent and aggressive with yourself, but that means you need to become more authentic. You need to step dangerously into your authenticity. Do whatever you can to slowly begin to, starve the poser out of your system. Eddie, thank you so much for sharing, man. Powerful insights. Thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you, man. Blessings to you and the family, bro. I appreciate you so much. You have no idea.
No, I appreciate you, man. You're an inspiration. And thank you guys all for listening in on our conversation. Eddie, where can they follow you? I know you have an Instagram. What's your handle or tag?
I have an Instagram, but it's the best place to follow me is on Facebook. It's at Kingdom Power and Glory.
Okay.
KPNG. I had a company that I started with shirts a little while ago, and now I just, Kingdom Power and Glory. And on my Instagram, it's King Eclipse, at King Eclipse. And we're starting this new thing called the Heart of War. It's how to fight God's way.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what God does is so opposite of what humanity does. And we're starting this thing in January, and we're kind of setting it up right now. So be looking out for the Heart of War.
I think that's good. And also to put another plug, if you want to listen to any of Eddie's sermons or Pastor Gary Venin, you can look him up. Glendale SDA Church, Arizona. And you can look him up on YouTube.
Glendale AZ SDA.
Glendale AZ SDA. Look them up on YouTube and you can find their sermons there. Good streaming. Yeah, good stuff. I really enjoy it. Hey, if you haven't already, make sure you head over to Apple Podcasts to drop that 5-star review. Leave a kind comment in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. We'll see you guys next time.